Okay, we're going to talk about systems. I know when I started my practice, I had no idea what I was doing. And it wasn't for a couple of years in when I started coaching that they told me I needed to get systems in place if I wanted to grow and scale my practice. And even then, no one told me what systems I needed and how to implement it. And it realistically wasn't until a couple of years ago when I met Anthony that we truly started getting systems in place for my practice, home therapy solutions. And I do want to say that before I met Anthony and Chad, that I worked with several other companies trying to get it in place and it was never successful. So, Anthony, let's start with you. Why do therapists need systems in place and what kind of systems do we need to be successful? Because you have worked with a wide variety of therapists since starting with our program.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, to even start off that answer there, you kind of experienced it. And we often see this too, where if you don't have any systems in place, and really when we refer to systems, we're referring to that digital footprint again of tools that help us manage the business. If you don't have those things, it can be very chaotic, right? And you're kind of running into issues where you're keeping people on Google Docs and spreadsheets and sticky notes or the traditional pen and paper, which I see it more often than not, especially in a world where we're constantly moving towards digital things. So I see it quite often, and really the reason why you want systems is kind of two or threefold. Of it helps you organize and keep things efficient. Really, it helps keep all of your patients and leads and even beyond that with referral sources in one place so that you can streamline that communication. You can build very consistent automated processes there and build it into your standard operating procedure. And then beyond that, it really offers scalability. We help people who are solopreneurs, and then we've helped your team, which is probably the largest one that I've ever worked with, where you guys have over 15 staff right now, and you're able to keep everybody in one place, and everybody has their role, everybody has their assigned ways that they communicate, and you have admins that help facilitate that, right? And there's just a way for you to walk in there and kind of see what's going on and be able to manage things too, but not feel like, it's all over the place. It's really all in one spot. So that's why we recommend systems. That's why we really build things and we customize them to what you need specifically, because there's not a one size fits all process here. And we really want to make this your digital home and a ecosystem that helps the business thrive more than anything.
100%. And before we go over to Megan, I want to touch back on one thing. We hear this all the time. I'm one person. Why do I need these systems or I don't need these systems in place? And I argue that you actually need them just as much, if not more, if you're a one person show. What are your thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's easy to have that approach of I can kind of keep things in my head, but the reality is, as you grow the business, do you really want to be seeing 20, 30 people a week and 24/7 you have thoughts about the business or patients that need something running through your head and you're constantly having to be in work mode? Personally, I don't think that's a very healthy thing. And we have processes that can ping you appropriately and be able to alert you that so and so's been discharged for X amount of time. Maybe we should check in with them, or be able to tell you, hey, you haven't followed up with this person. It's been 3 days. You know, do you need to call them or text them or communicate with them again? And I find that to be a much more useful way of approaching the business, because you're able to focus on your specialty, right, of treatment and furthering the patient's life, if you will, and not so focused on the business and actually the financial component of it, right? Like, do I have my calendar full and all of those elements? It kind of puts the care back into healthcare as a result of that.
Yeah, we see a lot of therapists that are trying to do it all by themselves, and they get to the point where they get burnt out, can't do it anymore, and then maybe they decide to put systems in place. Now they have to backtrack, or we've also seen therapists that have just kind of given up because it's gotten too much to try to manage it. And if we get systems in place earlier, we can help streamline all that and help progress therapists to their goals. So awesome. Thanks, Anthony. Megan, what are your thoughts on systems?
Well, I think systems are what Anthony does. It's also using an EMR that works for you because it keeps you compliant without having to think about compliance. So I think when I hear the business side and the therapy side, Anthony nails it. One, people think, well, I can schedule my own patients and I can manage all this. But the thing that you're missing is the business side of things, where you do have to be looking at the financials. You do have to be looking at policies and procedures and all these other things that make us compliant. That's not just scheduling patients, and that's not just following up and writing our notes. So having a good EMR that makes sure you're documenting everything appropriately so you're going to be compliant, and then having systems in place to remove that admin side of things leaves time for you to market, but also make sure that you're staying up on compliance, policies and procedures, all those things that we didn't learn anywhere, we have to learn now. And I think a lot of therapists coming into this business want to be therapists and not have to work so hard at the business side, but really you have to flip flop it. You already are a therapist. You know how to be a therapist. You have to now learn how to be a business owner. And being a business owner is not scheduling patients, and it's not putting in patient data. It's actually managing, and it's actually overseeing all of those. So without systems in place, you're really going to run into places down the road where you're like, I wasn't in compliance with that, or I had a HIPAA breach, or I did X, Y, and Z. And those things can be detrimental and very costly to your company, whether it's a one-man show or a team of 15.
And you bring up a really good point, and that goes back to that solid foundation as well. I mean, even before we help therapists get some of these automated systems in place, it's developing, that basic foundation that most people aren't putting in place, and they have no clue or understanding of, like, what kind of compliance, issues are there out there. I mean, we just had a therapist contact us because they had a HIPAA breach, what do you do with that? Or, with the new ADA 1557 rules and regulations that are in place that we have to follow, therapists don't understand that. So it is even before systems, going back to that foundation. So awesome points. Steve, what are your thoughts on systems and what systems therapists need to have in place and how it can help them and their business be successful? You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, good. All right. So systems is an awesome topic, as Anthony said and Megan. So yeah, you have to build a foundation as well with systems, right? So there's so much that goes into running a business as aside from just having an EMR. There's everything needs to work together essentially, right? So I definitely agree with that, especially what Megan has said about doesn't matter if you're a one person show or a team of 50 or more, you have to have systems in place. Because if you don't have systems in place, it's going to be that much harder as you grow, because then you're going to have to go back and fix everything. And that's why even a lot of platforms now, they're still on like a legacy platform, which is just very old school code and all of that. And it's hard for them to change because they have so much vested into that old platform. So the technology of today allows you to have so much better systems, and it's going to make your life easier. It's going to make your business more valuable. Okay, you might not know that yet, but believe me, when it comes time to, if you want to sell your business, for example, and I know many therapists that have successfully sold their business, they look at your systems. Whoever's buying will look at your systems and they will see how easy it is to hand off your business to somebody else. right? So if that's valuable to someone that's paying money for your business, isn't that valuable for you as well? And the answer is yes, it absolutely should be.
Awesome. Any last minute things any of you guys want to touch on when it comes to systems? We know that it needs to be individualized for your practice. There's not a one size fits all approach. You need to start with a good foundation and build your system. Systems are key for not only big businesses, but for the solo practitioners. And many times we're not, as therapists, we have no clue how any of the automations systems that we put in work. So working with someone to help you is huge. And one thing we didn't really talk about is systems can literally make you money, save you money, and make you more profitable in the long run. Just for example, like some of the systems we put in place, like the cancellation policy and system that Anthony, we put in place for our business. I mean, it's dramatically dropped down cancellations, and so that only increases our profit. We're working with another company currently that has a huge cancellation rate, and we were doing projections on if we decrease that cancellation rate, how much their revenue will grow. Another system that we try to put in place for everyone is that automatic follow-ups with clients you've discharged, or even teaching therapists how to taper clients down and transition either to maintenance or private pay, and having a system to manage that. Those all literally can save a practice a lot of money and increase their revenue. So systems can be valuable in many different ways. Any major other system or automation that I missed, Anthony, that's really helped some of our therapists increase their profits?
Really, two. I did mention a little bit the discharge automation, where I could send messages to that patient directly, but I can also just notify the therapist or an administrator to say, hey, look, we haven't seen this person. They're still qualified as a discharged client. Let's check in on them. And then that person can literally pick up the phone and spend 5 or 10 minutes. And that might not directly reflect back to them coming back as a patient, but we have no idea what that could, what could sprout from that, what words they might share with other people, their doctor, their neighbors, their friends, their loved ones. It only helps you to be able to, again, put the care back into healthcare, because it's just missing more often than not. But also birthdays, I will say.
Oh yeah, the follow-up birthday one.
We've had some great success with people who they put in the birthday, and that patient on that day gets a structured scheduled text or email. I've explored where we even set it a week and a half before that patient's birthday, and you can actually have time to then go get a birthday card and give it to them directly, which is always nice too. So lots of options there. And again, you're just kind of exploring how to elevate the experience that people have with your business.
I literally could talk about systems forever now that Anthony got me involved. And I will say, when I first started working with Anthony, I was a struggle bus trying to get some of these systems in place and understanding them. But now that we do, it's huge. One of my, another favorite things, since you talk about putting like care in healthcare, I like the automated intake, or like when someone schedules an evaluation, how they automatically get an email with a video of our therapist, because I think that makes it so much more personalized, and that can really lead to a variety of outcomes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It never hurts for you to actually put a face to the name, and you're going to be working with this person. Here's a little bit about them, and here's how they're going to help you specifically with this, problem. If it's pelvic health, or if it's just neurological or general rehab, we can have all those structures in place. It's kind of just almost putting ourselves in the shoes of our client, right? And that's what's nice is you have all the experience, you have all that education. How can I help arm the patient or arm the family with that information and be a light in a world that, things are so closed off in healthcare and education, and people rely on Google, and that can be detrimental, as we know, can actually cause more harm. But, how can we do better for our patients and for our local area? And by doing so, you grow the business. It becomes this snowball that's rolling down the hill, and it only gains speed as it progresses.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. As you can see, we could talk on this topic for a long time, but systems are key for success in anyone's business. Thank you, everyone.